the people in California represent a worldview that sees the church as a fundamental challenge to its authority. Because it is. Because they're right. It is. The state wants your full allegiance and worship. And they will demand it. The Chinese communists do. That's why they put people in prison and burn books. And that's coming for the church here as well. And it could start in January. It could start in January. I would not for a second be surprised if on January 22nd of 2021, if Biden Harris have been elected, and especially if they have the Senate as well, to see not only universal mask mandates for all public settings, including churches, but a locking down even tighter of the prohibition of churches from being able to meet. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And I look at anyone who would express surprise at that and go, why? What in their words or actions or history or the trajectory right now would for a second tell you that that would be an issue? And so what are we going to do? How do you respond to this? I put a tweet up recently, and I basically asked the question, in light of the fundamental worldview issues, because all this, right now, everyone's talking about the individuals. They're talking about Joe Biden. They're talking about Donald Trump. Rather than stepping back and realizing that both of these men represent radically different understandings of the world. Trump inconsistently so. Biden historically inconsistently so. I mean, he was once at least a supporter of the Hyde Amendment, but I mean, he's turned into pure jello as far as having a moral background, a backbone's concerned, but he pretty much always did. I mean, he's been lying about his history and background for decades and has been caught many, many times. Plagiarism, all that kind of stuff. But I don't think this has anything to do with Joe Biden. I mean, his mental issues aside, we are talking about a complete worldview issue here. This is a worldview election. People are going after Trump about white supremacy. I was just before we started there. Had you ever heard of the Proud Boys before the debate? You had. I had not. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Really? I thought that was a prayer. I thought it was no. That they had the name Patriot in their name. Patriot Prayer or something. That was not Proud Boys. Man, I had honestly never heard the name until Joe Biden used it in the debate. Now it's everywhere. And so before the program starts, I happened to see an interview with one of the leaders of this group, and he's black. And he's going, we are not white supremacists. We don't have white supremacists in our group. We no connection with the KKK. We denounce all of these things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm like, okay, I don't know who these people are, but it just seems so weird to me that people accuse Donald Trump of being a white supremacist, of being a racist, because he was in the thick of New York high life, the elite, and you don't live in that area if you're a racist. And I mean racist in the meaningful use of the word racist, not the newly defined thing that has nothing to do with race. I mean, in the real thing. And so you go to the debate and you have this whole thing about white supremacy. Will you denounce white supremacy? So let me remind you of something. Let me remind you. Remember the graphic? I forgot to pull it up. I was gonna have it bookmarked and got distracted. But remember the graphic that the museum from the Smithsonian had put out, some African something from the Smithsonian had put out, that talked about white culture. And so if you save up money and delay gratification, white culture. If you go to work on time, if you have a work ethic that says that you should do the best job that you should do for your employer, even if you are not rewarded for it in the way that you feel you should be, that you still have a moral responsibility to be a good employee, to that extends not only to your fellow employees, but to the customers of the company that you work for. White culture. White culture. It listed, rugged individualism. Basically what it was saying was that which made America America, that which made the American fighting man in World War II feared around the world. Feared around the world. Our soldiers were considerably better marksmen than anybody they came up against. You know why? Because most of them had been rabbit hunting in their backyard from the time they were 8. They could shoot a rabbit at 50 yards. You can shoot the enemy at 25, a whole lot easier. Rugged individualism. Sacrifice. Sacrificing yourself for others. How many of those Medal of Honor winners were people that had given their life to save 25 others? Because that was the rugged individualism, the work ethic of the American culture. Now it's called white culture. That's white supremacy. The mathematics that allows planes to fly, rockets to go to other planets, build bridges and skyscrapers. The medicine that allows us to have surgery on little babies in the womb, white supremacy. Anything now is white supremacy. In fact, the phrase, the statement that you would want people to be judged not by the color of their skin, but the content of their character, is white supremacy now. So when someone says, will you denounce white supremacy? You have to go, what do you mean by white supremacy? Oh, you should just denounce it, whatever it is. That's stupid. Will you denounce? Denounce it right now. Denounce it. What is it? If you have to even ask, then obviously you are guilty of right? That's easy to do. And here's what the left is doing. The left will take a phrase that once had a meaning. The Ku Klux Klan, white supremacy, had pretty much disappeared, to be perfectly honest with you. But it had a moral element to it. So they'll take that phrase, they will borrow the moral element from its old usage while in their classrooms and in their circles, they completely redefine it into something else. Something completely different. So if you look at that graphic and what it identifies as white culture and white supremacy, that's actually what the Bible says we're supposed to be like. So if you ask me, do you denounce white supremacy? If you mean like it's being defined in wokeness, I do not denounce Christianity. I do not denounce a work ethic. I do not denounce a recognition that God has created the world and that it works the same way for all of us. And that it is not colonization to teach people that 2 + 2 = 4. That is absurd insanity leading to the destruction of any meaningful culture. So You're the one that's lying to us all by using the term white supremacy to mean something that it doesn't mean. But you're banking on the fact that people, because we're made in the image of God, know what that phrase should mean in the meaning of the words. Grab that moral element and utilize that even as you're redefining it. Shame on every single one of you. But you don't have a framework for understanding what shame is to begin with. So it doesn't really matter. But that's what's happening. That's what's happening in our culture right now. You turn on the television right now, and you're going to find people saying, oh, and it's happening in the church. Ed Stetzer, TGC, ERLC. You've got to understand where these people are coming from. They have been deeply infected with this critical theory, woke, neo-Marxist, whatever you want to call it. They have been deeply infected with this stuff. And it is utterly inconsistent with any kind of meaningful Christian worldview. It is destructive. And just as it's destroying the culture around us, it destroys the church as well. It creates division because it doesn't use biblical terminology. In the Bible, white supremacy is wrong because, first of all, there are no races. There's one human race. And it is wrong because it fosters hatred in the heart. So that one guy who said it shouldn't be the color of your skin, it should be the content of your character, was exactly right. It's amazing so many people today would say that's white supremacy. No, it's not. That's a Christian value. That was a Christian value he stated. Whatever else you might think about him, that was a Christian value he stated. And it was a Christian value that I stated when I said at the Lord's Supper, that is a Christ space, and you need to leave your ethnicity out of it. Because you come solely as a redeemed sinner in Jesus to that table. You don't drag anything else with you. And we actually had people saying that there should be an ecumenical council to have me excommunicated as a heretic for daring to say that. Daring to say that. And yet, that's what you're getting out of TGC, ERLC, these places. There you go. There you go. Yeah, I found out just before the program started that Ted Tripp goes to Eric Mason's church. Eric Mason's his pastor. That explains a lot of where Ted Tripp's going these days. Big time. And you're going, but I've learned so much. I know. I know. It is a day of revelation of what is really going on and what's really happening. So I don't know when the next quote unquote debate is. I think it's next week. I think the VP debate's next week, isn't it?
It is. I believe you're right. And then the problem here is that surfacing is the fact that the moderator for the next presidential debate used to work for Biden, has tweeted things extremely anti-Trump.
He used to work for Biden?
Yeah. But what I was going to chime in originally for was that on your last point...
Yes, you're going to interrupt me. So
on your last point, you need to drink something and take a breath anyway. Some of these things can come home to roost. And the morning after the debate, Mr. Biden decided to tweet a picture or make a tweet.
That's right.
Regarding white supremacy, and the picture that he chose to use and the reference point that apparently he was using in the debate was Kyle Rittenhouse.
Right.
Absolutely no evidence anywhere of any kind. And Mr. Rittenhouse's lawyer has stepped up and said, you know what, we're going to sue Biden and the Biden campaign for libel. And at some point in time, some people who are not public figures, like Kyle Rittenhouse or like Nick Sandmann, are going to have the most power in these situations because they are not public figures, and they're going to be the ones who get a Lynn Wood to step up and say, you know what? We're going to take your entire bank account if you keep doing this. We're going to show you and teach you a lesson. But,
yeah, but once they have power,
well, there is
the courts
an
go with
opposite
them.
side to that based
Courts
on
go with them.
what you were saying the other day about judges.
Yep.
And you hope that these judges, this massive amount of judges that have been put in place over the last 3.5 years, are righteous judges. I don't know that we can count on that.
I don't know either.
I've said it a dozen times.
Well, but they're already ruling by divine fiat.
Yes.
They're already ruling. They don't care about what the courts say. They don't care about what the legislatures say.
No.
They're just saying we're going to do it because I'm an authority.
But you know,
that's the crisis that we're facing.
We are looking at the results of so many things that you've been saying over the years. The judgment of God is coming upon this nation. This is what it looks like, folks. You thought to be cavalier over these things, the murder of the unborn and so many other unrighteous things that we've done in this country, and the incredible insanity that we've all witnessed in the public square over the last 10 to 20 years. And it is now coming full circle, and we're seeing it. You didn't take it seriously.
Full circle.
God will.
It is full circle. And the question is, how do you respond to it, and how do you do so in such a way that's honoring and glorifying to God? That's the important part, and that's what we're trying to do. So anyway, I am certain, up until the debate, everything was about SCOTUS, and now that's dropped off the radar for the moment, because I think like 11 days from now, I think, is when they're going to start the stuff. In regards to SCOTUS stuff, and there is no, everything's bare knuckles. There is no question about it. There's no question about it. But we are in a war, and there are revolutionaries, and the revolutionaries are not outside of our borders. They're inside our borders, and they're trying to burn it all down. And they're inside our churches. Yep. They're inside our churches. There's no two ways about it. And that raises all sorts of interesting questions as well.